Commander Zara Voss pressed her scaled palm against the viewport of the research station, Haven's Rest, watching another sun flicker and fade in the distance. The third one this week. Across the galaxy, civilizations were going dark, their worlds consumed by something that defied every law of physics they knew. "Commander," called Lieutenant Kex from his console, his forearms dancing across holographic displays. The Threnodi's usually calm demeanor cracked as he spoke. "We're receiving another distress signal. It's the Sanctuary Worlds." Zara's blood chilled. The Sanctuary Worlds housed over 2 billion refugees from dozens of species. "If they fell, put it through," she ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a desperate face she recognized. Chancellor Marim of the Galactic Coalition, her usually pristine appearance now haggard with exhaustion and terror. Behind her, explosions lit up the sky. "This is our final transmission." Marim's voice cracked through the static. "The Devourers have breached our last defensive line. They're not just destroying our ship, they're unmaking them. Our weapons pass through them like smoke, but they tear through our hulls like paper." The image shook as something massive struck their station. "We've tried everything. Every weapon, every strategy, every alliance, nothing works. They consume matter itself, turning it into nothing, into void." Marim looked directly at the camera, her eyes reflecting the desperation of a dying galaxy. "If anyone is listening to this, if there's any species out there we haven't contacted, please help us. We're sending our complete database of encounters, tactical analyses, everything we know about these creatures." The screen dissolved into static, then went black. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Zara had seen the reports. Entire star systems simply gone. Not destroyed, not conquered. Erased. As if they had never existed at all. "Commander," Dr. Elena Vasquez spoke from her science station, her human features pale. "The data packet is massive. It contains information from over 300 species encounters with these Devourers. Every single engagement resulted in complete annihilation." Zara nodded grimly. As head of the Coalition's Deep Space Research Division, she'd been tracking this threat for months. What had started as isolated incidents on the galaxy's rim had become a wave of extinction rolling toward the core worlds. "Any patterns in their attacks?" she asked. "They seem to be moving systematically," Dr. Vasquez replied, manipulating the holographic display to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red markers indicated consumed systems, spreading like an infection. But there's something else. They're not just random destruction. They're selective. They target technological civilizations first. Worlds with primitive life forms are left untouched. "Until now," added Kex, pulling up new data. "This latest wave shows them consuming everything. Primitive worlds, space-borne life forms, even cosmic phenomena like nebulae are disappearing." Zara studied the data, her mind racing. As a Veltharian, her species had always prided themselves on logic and tactical thinking. But this defied logic, an enemy that couldn't be touched, couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be stopped. "There's something else," Dr. Vasquez said quietly. "In all these reports, there's mention of one species that hasn't been contacted, one that most civilizations actively avoid." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. She knew what the human was about to say. "The humans," she whispered. "According to the database, they're classified as a Death World species," Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every first contact report ends the same way. Quote, extremely dangerous, avoid at all costs, capable of violence beyond comprehension." Lieutenant Kex's mandibles clicked nervously. "Commander, surely you're not considering—" "The Coalition tried everything else," Zara interrupted. "Conventional weapons, exotic matter weapons, dimensional shifters, even reality manipulators. Nothing worked." She turned to face her crew. "What if the reason everyone fears humans is exactly what we need?" Dr. Vasquez pulled up another file. "I've been studying the human homeworld, Earth. The reports are disturbing. They evolved on a planet so hostile that every other species classes it as uninhabitable. Extreme weather, predators at every level of the food chain, geological instability, radiation bombardment from their star. And they didn't just survive, Kex added, reading over her shoulder. They thrived. They became the apex predator of their entire world. Then they looked at the void of space and said, "Let's conquer that too." Zara made her decision. Set course for Earth. If we're going to die anyway, we might as well try the one option no one else has been brave enough to attempt. "Commander," Dr. Vasquez said hesitantly, "the human homeworld is in an isolated system. No one has made contact with them in over 50 years. We don't even know if they're still there." "Then we're about to find out," Zara replied, settling into her command chair. "Because if they are, we're going to ask the most feared species in the galaxy for help." As Haven's Rest changed course toward the Sol system, none of them noticed the small probe that had been following them. A probe that was already transmitting their destination to something vast and hungry, moving through the void between stars. The Devourers had been watching, and they were learning. Chapter 2. First Contact Protocol. The Sol system looked peaceful from a distance. Too peaceful, thought Zara, as she watched their long-range sensors paint a picture of organized chaos. Ships moved in perfect formations. Around the third planet, their designs unlike anything in the Galactic database. Where most species built sleek, efficient vessels, these human ships looked like they were designed for war. Angular, aggressive, bristling with weapons that shouldn't exist. "They've detected us," announced Kex, his forearms flying over his console. "Multiple targeting systems are locked onto our ship. At least 30 different types of weapons. Some of these energy signatures don't match anything in our database." "Hail them," Zara ordered. "Standard first contact protocols." Dr. Vasquez worked her station, broadcasting on all frequencies in Galactic Standard Trade Common and... She paused. "I'm also including mathematical sequences and pictographs. If they're truly isolated, they might not know our languages." The response came immediately. "Unknown. Vessel, this is Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Defense Force destroyer Indomitable. You are in restricted space. State your intentions or we will be forced to regard you as hostile." The voice was calm, professional, but carried an undertone that made Zara's scales tingle with unease. She'd never heard a species speak with such controlled lethality. "Captain Chen, this is Commander Zara Voss of the Galactic Coalition Deep Space Research Division. We come seeking urgent assistance. Our galaxy faces extinction, and you may be our only hope." A long pause, then, "Stand by." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human. Zara had seen images in the database, but seeing one alive was different. Captain Chen was compact, built like a predator, with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of their bridge in seconds. His face was marked with small scars, and when he moved, every motion spoke of coiled violence. "Commander Voss," he said, his gaze shifting between each member of her crew. "It's been 53 years since anyone from the Galactic Coalition has contacted Earth. Last time they told us to stay in our system and never leave. Now you're here asking for help. What changed?" Zara chose her words carefully. "Captain, we're facing an enemy unlike anything we've encountered. They call themselves the Devourers. They don't just destroy, they erase. Entire star systems gone as if they never existed. 300 species have tried to stop them. All have failed." Captain Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Show me." Dr. Vasquez transmitted the data package. As Captain Chen reviewed it, Zara watched his face. Most species showed fear when viewing the Devourer records. Humans apparently showed calculation. "Interesting," he said finally. "They phase shift through conventional matter but interact selectively. The energy patterns suggest they exist, partially outside normal space-time." He looked up at Zara. "What makes you think we can help when 300 other species couldn't?" It was the question Zara had been dreading. How do you tell someone that everyone in the galaxy fears them? "Because," she said carefully, "humans have a reputation for..." Unconventional solutions to impossible problems. Captain Chen smiled, and Zara felt ice form in her veins. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Ah," he said. "You've heard the stories. Death-worlders. Crazy enough to use gravity as a weapon, mad enough to turn stars into bombs. The species so violent that everyone else stays away from our corner of space." "Are the stories true?" asked Dr. Vasquez quietly. Captain Chen's smile widened. "Dr. Vasquez, isn't it? Tell me, what's the most dangerous thing your species has ever created?" Antimatter containment bombs. They can destroy a small moon." "Cute," Chen said. "We've weaponized quantum uncertainty, turned probability itself into a gun. We've learned to punch holes in reality and use the void as ammunition. And when we got bored with that, we started making weapons out of concepts. Fear, despair, hope, all valid ammunition if you know how to load them." The bridge fell silent. Even Kex had stopped clicking. "But here's the thing," Chen continued, his tone becoming conversational. "We're not monsters. We're just very, very good at solving problems that require extreme solutions." He leaned forward. "And these devourers sound like exactly that kind of problem." "Will you help us?" Zara asked. "Commander Voss, we've been monitoring galactic communications for decades. We've watched civilizations rise and fall, seen wars that make our worst conflicts look like playground disputes. And through it all, the galaxy has made one thing clear. Humans aren't welcome in polite society." Zara felt her hope dying. "Captain," "Which is why," Chen continued, "when polite society is about to be erased from existence, they call the impolite ones." He stood. "You'll have our answer within the hour. In the meantime, accept our hospitality. You look like you haven't had a decent meal in weeks." The screen went dark. "Commander," whispered Kex, "what have we done?" Before Zara could answer, their ship's systems chimed with an incoming transmission. Not from Captain Chen, but from deep space. The message was brief, transmitted on an old Coalition emergency frequency. "This is Admiral Sarah Kim of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. If you're receiving this, you've made contact with Earth. Good. We've been waiting." The image of a stern-faced human woman appeared on screen. "The Devourers reached our outer monitoring station 6 hours ago. We've been tracking them for months, preparing. Your arrival is fortuitous timing." Dr. Vasquez gasped. "Commander, look at the transmission source." Zara checked the coordinates and felt her heart skip a beat. The signal was coming from outside, the galaxy entirely. Humans had been watching from beyond the galactic rim. "How long have they been out there?" she whispered. Admiral Kim's recorded message continued. "By the time you receive this, Operation Endgame will be in motion. Humanity's answer to extinction itself. Commander Voss, report to the battleship Ragnarok at the coordinates attached. Bring everything you know about the Devourers." The message ended with coordinates that made no sense. They pointed to empty space between galaxies. "Commander," Dr. Vasquez said, her voice shaking. "Those coordinates, there's nothing there. It's just void." But even as she spoke, their sensors detected something massive decloaking at those exact coordinates. Something so large it defied comprehension. A ship the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that hurt to look at directly. And it was just one of many. As they watched, a fleet materialized from nothing. Hundreds of ships, each one a testament to engineering that shouldn't be possible. "My God," whispered Dr. Vasquez. "How long have they been preparing for this?" Zara's communicator chimed. Captain Chen's voice came through, calm as ever. "Commander Voss, you wanted to know if humans could help with your devourer problem. Well, we've been working on that problem since before you knew it existed. Welcome to humanity's final solution to extinction." As their ship changed course toward the impossible fleet, Zara realized that perhaps the galaxy had been right to fear humans. But for the first time in months, she also felt something else. Hope. Chapter 3. The Art of War, the Ragnarok Defied. every principle of engineering that Zara thought she understood. As their shuttle approached the massive battleship, she could see that it wasn't just large. It was wrong. Parts of the hull seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons pods that appeared solid became translucent when viewed from different angles, and the entire ship pulsed with energy signatures that made her instruments weep electronic. Tears. How is it even staying together? Muttered Dr. Vasquez, checking her readings for the dozenth time. Controlled reality distortion, came a voice from behind them. They turned to see a human in military uniform materialize in their shuttle. Not walk in, not beam in. Materialize. Colonel James Wright, Human Expeditionary Science Division. The newcomer said casually, as if teleporting onto alien shuttles was normal. Sorry for the dramatic entrance. Dimensional folding technology makes traditional docking procedures a bit redundant. Lieutenant Kex's mandibles clicked rapidly. Your entire ship is bending space? Among other things, Wright replied with a grin that somehow managed to be both friendly and terrifying. Wait until you see what we've done to time. Admiral Kim is waiting for you in the war room. Fair warning. What you're about to see might challenge some of your fundamental assumptions. About physics, the shuttle bay they landed in was impossible. It was larger inside than the ship's exterior dimensions could allow, filled with craft that seemed to be built from crystallized mathematics and weaponized probability. Humans moved among them with casual efficiency, performing maintenance on equipment that shouldn't exist. Colonel Wright, Zara said as they walked, how long has humanity been preparing for the Devourers? 67 years, he replied without hesitation. Ever since our first deep space probes detected anomalous void patterns on the galactic rim. We've been watching civilizations disappear, analyzing the pattern, preparing. But why didn't you warn anyone? Wright stopped walking and looked at her with an expression of infinite patience. Commander, 50 years ago, your coalition made it very clear that humanity should stay in its own system. When we tried to share our early research on reality warping technologies, we were told we were dangerously unstable and a threat to galactic peace. So we stopped sharing. They entered an elevator that moved in directions that didn't exist. Zara felt her sense of up and down become mere suggestions. We kept watching, though, Wright continued. Kept researching. Kept preparing for the day when the thing we'd been tracking finally reached the galaxy proper. And when that day came, we'd be ready with solutions that no one else would even think to attempt. The elevator opened onto a war room that defied description. Star charts floated in midair showing tactical deployments across multiple dimensions. Humans worked at stations that seemed to exist partially in other realities, coordinating with forces that operated according to physics Zara didn't recognize. At the center of it all stood Admiral Sarah Kim. She was smaller than Zara had expected, but carried herself with an authority that made the room bend toward her. When she looked up from a holographic display showing the Devourer advance, her eyes held the weight of entire civilizations. Commander Voss, Admiral Kim said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. Thank you for coming. Your timing is perfect. We're about to demonstrate why everyone fears Deathworlders. She gestured to the central display, which shifted to show real-time footage of a Devourer attack. Zara watched in horror as the creatures phased through a coalition defense fleet, their touch turning matter into nothingness. Beautiful, isn't it? Admiral Kim said conversationally. They exist partially outside our reality, which is why conventional weapons can't touch them. They consume matter by shifting it into a parallel dimension where the fundamental constants are different, extremely elegant. How do you know that? Dr. Vasquez asked. Because we caught one. The room fell silent. 3 months ago, Admiral Kim continued, we detected a lone Devourer scout probing the outer edge of our solar system. So we did what humans do best when faced with something we don't understand. She smiled that terrifying human smile. We trapped it, dissected it, and reverse-engineered its technology. Colonel Wright pulled up new displays. Turns out the Devourers aren't naturally occurring. They're artificial constructs created by a civilization that transcended normal space-time about 1 million years ago. They were designed as the ultimate cleanup crew, erasing failed realities to make room for new ones. But something went wrong, Admiral Kim added. Their creators disappeared, but the Devourers kept following their last command: consume everything. They've been doing it for millennia, moving from galaxy to galaxy, leaving nothing behind. Zara felt her scales prickle with dread. If they're that powerful, how can we possibly stop them? By being more creative than their creators, Admiral Kim replied. See, the beings who made the Devourers were highly advanced, but they thought like civilized entities. They built elegant solutions to complex problems. But humans, we don't think like civilized entities. She gestured, and the display shifted to show human fleet positions throughout the galaxy. While you were trying to fight them conventionally, we were preparing unconventional warfare. We've seeded their approach vectors with quantum mines that exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously. We've created weapons that fire causality itself as ammunition, and we've built something even better. What? Whispered Kex. Admiral Kim's smile became predatory. We've built Devourers of our own, but ours don't just consume matter, they consume concepts, ideas, the very notion of existence itself. The display showed schematics that hurt to look at directly. Weapons, built from weaponized mathematics, ships powered by controlled paradoxes, soldiers equipped with armor made from crystallized violence. The Devourers think they're the ultimate predator, Admiral Kim continued. But they've never encountered a species that weaponizes anything and everything, including the spaces between thoughts. They're about to learn why the galaxy fears humans. An alarm chimed softly. Colonel Wright checked his displays. Admiral, they've taken the bait. The main Devourer fleet is moving toward the core worlds. They're ignoring our outer positions just as predicted. Perfect, Admiral Kim said. Commander Voss, you're about to witness the human approach to impossible odds. She turned to address the room. All units, initiate Operation Endgame. Let's show these reality eaters what a Death World species can do when it's properly motivated. Across the war room, humans began implementing strategies that defied comprehension. Zara watched displays showing fleets moving through folded space, weapons charging with energies that shouldn't exist, and soldiers preparing for battle in dimensions she couldn't even perceive. What happens now? She asked. Admiral Kim looked at her with eyes that held the cold fire of dying stars. Now we do what humans have always done when faced with extinction. We get creative, we get vicious, and we make sure that if we're going down, we're taking our enemies with us. She paused, watching as status reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The difference is, this time we're not planning to go down at all. Chapter 4. When the apex predator hunts, the battle began in a dimension that didn't have a name. Zara watched from the Ragnarok's observation deck as human forces engaged the Devourer fleet in ways that rewrote the laws of physics. In real time, ships phased in and out of existence, weapons fired bullets made of compressed spacetime, and fighters performed maneuvers through dimensions that existed only when observed. Status report, Admiral Kim called from the command center. Phase 1 complete, Colonel Wright replied, studying displays that showed battles across 17 different realities. The Devourers have engaged our decoy fleets in the Andromeda approach vector. They're completely focused on what they think is our main force. And our actual main force? Moving into position behind them. Turns out, beings that exist partially, outside reality, have trouble watching their backs when behind is a direction that only exists when we want it to. Dr. Vasquez leaned toward Zara. Are you understanding any of this? Not a word, Zara replied, watching a human fighter craft literally punch a hole through a Devourer ship by weaponizing the concept of through. But I think that's the point. On the main display, the real battle was beginning. The Devourer, main fleet, thousands of reality-eating constructs, each the size of a city, were converging on what they believed to be humanity's last stand. What they found instead was a trap that existed in 43 dimensions simultaneously. Admiral, came a voice from the communication station. Captain Chen reports the Sol Defense Fleet is in position. Operation Checkmate is ready to deploy. Admiral Kim nodded. Execute, What happened next defied every understanding of warfare that Zara possessed. The human fleet didn't attack the Devourers. Instead, they attacked the space around them. Reality itself became a weapon as humans deployed devices that reversed the flow of causality, turned effect into cause, and made the very concept of existence into a negotiable parameter. Devourer ships found themselves caught in loops of temporal paradox, existing and not existing simultaneously. Their reality phasing abilities became liabilities as humans used quantum uncertainty guns to make their partial existence into a permanent maybe. How are they doing this? Lieutenant Kex whispered, his forearms clutching his console as he watched impossible maneuvers unfold. By cheating, Admiral Kim replied calmly. The Devourers operate according to very advanced physics, but humans operate according to weaponized insanity. When you make impossibility into a precision instrument, advanced physics becomes a suggestion rather than a law. On screen, Captain Chen's voice came through with professional calm despite the chaos around him. Ragnarok, this is indomitable. We've successfully isolated the Devourer command cluster in a probability cage. Recommend deployment of the reality bombs. Negative, Captain, Admiral Kim replied. Reality bombs are for Plan B. Initiate the real solution. Zara watched as new contacts appeared on the displays. Ships unlike anything they'd seen before. Massive constructs that seemed to be built from crystallized mathematics and powered by controlled contradictions. What are those? She asked. Those, Admiral Kim said with satisfaction, are humanity's ultimate answer to the Devourer problem. We call them existence eaters. They don't just consume matter or energy. They consume the underlying logic that allows something to exist in the first place. The new ships moved toward the trapped Devourer fleet with motions that hurt to perceive directly. Where they passed, not only did Devourers cease to exist, but the very concept that they had ever existed began to unravel. It's not enough to destroy them, Colonel Wright explained, seeing Zara's confused expression. If we just kill them, other Devourers might learn from their deaths, adapt, evolve. So instead we're editing them out of reality entirely. As far as the universe is concerned, they never existed in the first place. But that's... Dr. Vasquez started, then stopped. That's impossible. Yes, Admiral Kim agreed. It is. That's what makes it so effective. The Devourers can adapt to any possible solution, but impossible solutions. Those they never saw coming. The battle was reaching its climax. Across multiple dimensions, Devourer forces found themselves caught between human fleets that attacked from directions like maybe and sometimes, using weapons that fired concepts rather than energy. Their reality phasing abilities were useless against enemies who treated reality as a rough draft rather than a finished product. Admiral, came an urgent voice from the communication station. We're receiving a transmission. It's from the Devourers themselves. Put it through. The main screen flickered, showing something that shouldn't exist. A Devourer, somehow communicating across dimensions, its form shifting between states of matter and antimatter as it spoke. We are the end, it said, each word distorting space around it. We have consumed galaxies. We are inevitable. Admiral Kim leaned forward. Maybe you were inevitable somewhere else, but you made one crucial mistake. What? Mistake? You came to a galaxy with humans in it, and humans don't believe in inevitability. She made a gesture, and across the battlefield the existence eaters completed their work. One by one, Devourer ships simply stopped having ever existed. Their weapons, their technology, their very presence in reality became a historical impossibility. The transmission cut off mid-word as the concept of the being speaking was edited out of the cosmic database. Status report, Admiral Kim called. All Devourer forces in this sector have been unexisted, Colonel Wright reported. Our existence eaters are tracking the remaining fragments back to their points of origin. Estimated time to complete universal cleanup, 72 hours, and the other galaxies they've consumed, already being restored. Turns out when you erase something from existence retroactively, Everything it destroyed comes back. The civilizations they wiped out over the millennia are starting to reappear, none the wiser that they were ever gone. Zara slumped in her chair, overwhelmed. It's over? Just like that? Just like that, Admiral Kim confirmed. Though I should mention we've been planning and preparing for 67 years, so just like that is a bit of an understatement. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her readings. Admiral, the energy expenditure for what you just did, it should have drained entire star systems. It would have, Admiral Kim agreed, if we were paying for it with normal energy. But we figured out how to power impossible weapons with impossible energy sources. Hope, determination, the refusal to accept defeat. It turns out those have measurable energy values when you know how to harness them. As if on cue, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Coalition worlds that had been preparing for extinction were reporting that their local devourer threats had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not driven off. Simply no longer having ever existed. Commander Voss, Admiral Kim said, turning to face her. You came here asking for help saving your galaxy. Mission accomplished. But now we need to have a different conversation. About what? About what happens next. See, for 70 years, the galactic community has made it clear that humans should stay isolated. But now that same community owes its existence to human intervention. That changes things. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. What do you want? Admiral Kim smiled, and for the first time, it was genuinely warm rather than predatory. What we've always wanted, Commander? To be part of the galactic community, to share our knowledge, learn from others, and help solve problems before they become extinction events. The galaxy has spent decades fearing what humans might do. Now they know what we can do when properly motivated. She gestured to the displays showing restored star systems coming back online across the galaxy. We saved everyone, Commander. Every species, every civilization, every world that the Devourers consumed over the past 1,000,000 years. They're all back, all safe, all completely unaware that they were ever in danger. We asked for nothing in return. Then what's the catch? Zara asked, because in her experience, there was always a catch. No catch, Admiral Kim replied. Just a request, when your coalition convenes to discuss the Devourer crisis that no longer exists. Remember what happened here. Remember that the species you feared, the ones you kept isolated and shunned, were the ones who saved you when no one else could. And if we refuse? If the coalition decides you're still too dangerous? Admiral Kim's smile never wavered. Then, we go back to our solar system, continue our research, and wait for the next impossible problem that needs an impossible solution. Because there will be a next time, Commander. There always is. She paused, looking out at the restored galaxy through the viewport, but we'd prefer to face it together. Epilogue, New Beginnings. 3 months later, Zara stood in the halls of the Galactic Coalition Assembly, watching as representatives from 300 species debated humanity's application for membership. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same species that had saved them all was still being argued about as if they were a potential threat. The human application raises significant concerns, Senator Vexkov, the hegemony, was saying. Their military capabilities exceed safe parameters by several orders of magnitude, which is exactly why we want them on our side, countered Ambassador Thren of the Trade Federation. They eliminated an extinction-level threat that we couldn't even touch. Dr. Vasquez approached Zara's side. How's the vote looking? Close, Zara replied. Too close. Half the assembly is grateful, the other half is terrified. And which half are you? Zara considered the question. In the months since the Devourer crisis, she'd learned more about humanity than any previous contact. They were dangerous, yes, but they were also the species that had spent decades preparing to save everyone else, asking nothing in return. Both, she said finally, but mostly grateful. The debate was interrupted by an alert from the Assembly's Deep Space Monitoring Station. Chancellor Marim, who had survived the Sanctuary World crisis thanks to retroactive timeline restoration, called for attention. Assembly members were receiving reports of a new phenomenon in the Outer Rim. Something is disrupting subspace across multiple sectors. The main display showed sensor readings from the affected area. Whatever was happening, it was big and it was spreading. Preliminary analysis suggests this isn't natural, Chancellor Marim continued. The energy patterns are artificial, but they don't match any known technology. A murmur went through the assembly. Zara felt a familiar dread settling in her stomach. Another extinction threat so soon after the last one. The assembly doors opened and Admiral Kim walked in, flanked by Captain Chen and Colonel Wright. They moved with the same controlled efficiency that Zara remembered, and their presence immediately shifted the atmosphere in the room. Admiral Kim, Chancellor Marim said, what can Earth tell us about this new phenomenon? That it's not a threat. Admiral Kim replied calmly. It's a gift. She gestured, and new data appeared on the main display. The disruption wasn't destructive. It was constructive. New trade routes were opening through previously impassable regions of space. Dead systems were showing signs of renewed stellar activity, and several worlds that had been considered uninhabitable were becoming garden paradises. Over the past 3 months, humanity has been working on a project, Admiral Kim explained. We took the technology we captured from the Devourers and reverse-engineered it. Instead of consuming reality, we learned to create it. What you're seeing is the early stages of galactic renovation. Senator Vex Ka stood abruptly. You're changing fundamental properties of space without authorization. Whose authorization would we need? Admiral Kim asked mildly. We're operating in unclaimed space, using technology we developed ourselves, causing no harm to existing civilizations. But you're changing the galaxy without consulting anyone? Yes, Admiral Kim agreed. The same way we saved the galaxy without consulting anyone. Because when the choice is between asking permission and doing what needs to be done, humans tend to ask forgiveness instead. Chancellor Marim leaned forward. What exactly are you doing out there? Colonel Wright stepped forward. Creating new habitable worlds, opening stable wormhole networks for trade and exploration, and establishing what we call reality anchors. Stations that will prevent anything like the Devourers from ever affecting this galaxy again. You're terraforming space itself, whispered Dr. Vasquez. Among other things, Captain Chen added with that unsettling human smile. We figured if we're going to be part of the galactic community, we might as well make the galaxy a better place to live. The assembly fell silent. Zara looked around at the faces of representatives from 300 species, all trying to process what they were hearing. Humanity wasn't just offering to join the coalition. They were offering to improve it. The question, Admiral Kim said, addressing the entire assembly, is whether you want us to do this as members of the galactic community or as outsiders who occasionally drop by to fix problems. Senator Vex Ka sputtered. This is blackmail. No, Admiral Kim replied calmly. This is a job application. We're showing you what we can do when we're motivated to help. The choice of whether you want that help officially or unofficially is entirely yours. Chancellor Marim called for an immediate vote on humanity's application for coalition membership. The result was unanimous. Later, as the celebration continued in the assembly halls, Zara found herself on an observation deck with Admiral Kim, looking out at the stars. You planned this, Zara said. The timing, the new project, everything. Of course we did, Admiral Kim replied. Humans are very good at solving problems, Commander, but we're even better at preventing them from happening in the first place. And if the vote had gone the other way? Admiral Kim was quiet for a moment, watching as human ships moved through space in the distance, their impossible designs now a familiar sight in coalition space. Then we would have continued our work anyway, she said finally. Because that's what humans do, Commander. We see problems, and we fix them, whether anyone wants us to or not. She turned to face Zara directly. But I'm glad it didn't come to that. It's much easier to build a better galaxy when everyone's working together. What's next for humanity? Zara asked. Same thing that's always been next, Admiral Kim replied with a smile that was no longer terrifying but reassuring. We find the next impossible problem and solve it. The difference is, now we won't be doing it alone. As if summoned by her words, Dr. Vasquez appeared on the observation deck, her face flushed with excitement. Admiral Commander, you need to see this, she said breathlessly. We're receiving signals from outside our galaxy. Multiple galaxies, actually, and they're all saying the same thing. Which is? Zara asked. Thank you. The civilizations that were restored when the Devourers were erased. They remember what happened. They remember being saved by humanity, and now they want to establish contact. Admiral Kim raised an eyebrow. How many civilizations? Preliminary count suggests over 50,000 different species across 12 galaxies, Dr. Vasquez replied. They're calling it the Restoration Alliance, and they want Earth to lead it. Zara felt her scales tingle with a mixture of awe and apprehension. 50,000 species? Apparently, Admiral Kim said thoughtfully. Saving the universe gets you noticed by the universe, who would have thought? Captain Chen's voice came through the observation deck's comm system. Admiral, we're receiving formal diplomatic requests from everywhere. The quantum communication arrays are overloading from the volume of incoming messages. Patch me through to Fleet Command, Admiral Kim ordered. It looks like humanity's isolation period is officially over. As reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy and beyond, Zara realized that the universe had fundamentally changed. The species that had been feared and shunned for decades was now being hailed as the saviors of existence itself. Admiral, she said quietly, are you ready for this? For humanity to become the center of galactic attention? Admiral Kim looked out at the stars where human ships moved alongside coalition vessels in formations that would have been impossible just months ago. Commander, humans have been preparing for the impossible for our entire existence. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, nuclear, weapons, and our own worst instincts. We've turned a death world into a garden and learned to make war on the concept of defeat itself. She paused, watching as a human exploration vessel departed for parts unknown. Its mission to establish first contact with one of the newly restored civilizations. I think we can handle being popular for a while. And after that? Admiral Kim smiled, and this time it was filled with the boundless optimism that Zara was learning was perhaps humanity's most dangerous weapon of all. After that, Commander, we find the next impossible thing that needs doing. Because in a universe this big, with this many species and this many worlds, there's always going to be another impossible problem waiting for an impossible solution. She gestured toward the viewport, where the lights of 1,000 worlds twinkled in the darkness. And humans, as you've learned, specialize in impossible solutions. As if to emphasize her point, alerts began chiming throughout the observation deck. New contacts were appearing on long-range sensors, ships from distant galaxies arriving to pay their respects to the species that had saved them all. Well, Zara said, watching the impossible become routine once again. It looks like the universe is about to become a much more interesting place. Commander, Admiral Kim replied, her eyes bright with anticipation. It already is, and in the depths of space where reality bent to accommodate the will of those bold enough to reshape it, human ships continued their work, building bridges between worlds, solving problems that couldn't be solved, and proving once again that when the impossible becomes necessary, the most feared species in the galaxy becomes everyone's best hope. The plea had been heard. The most feared species had responded, and the universe would never be the same. The end.